Okay. All right. Okay. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Zup, how's it going? It has been a while. So good to see you here, especially here in the chat. Thanks for coming around. I'll get caught up on everything in a second. But funny story. Been a little out of it today, and I'm doing my work. I have a couple different jobs to take care of, and I was just distracted all day long, not getting stuff done. And I was like, okay, I have a little break before I gotta start streaming. It'll be fine. And then 5 minutes ago, I was like, oh, I need to stream like now. I need to get things together now. So we're here. We're here. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to have you here as well. Yeah, just give me a minute and I'll kind of get caught up on everything. But it really snuck up on me. It's just been a busy time. But anyway, how's it going, everybody? How are you doing? How are you doing, Zep? What else was Zep saying? Zep said Lego Hulk Big Fig. Okay. There's a space in my boot. Are these just like... Are we just making references? Are these like topics you want to dig into? Lego Hulk, for example, I'm sure is a product of some kind. And probably part of an animated show. Let me know if there's more information there. Christian Bailey's back. Hello, Christian. Thank you so much for coming back around. How's it going today? Are you doing all right this week? What's today? Today's Tuesday. Ooh. Sub says, nah, I'm so sick. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm glad you can still, like, you know, be online and hang out and stuff, but that always sucks. I don't know. I have gotten COVID at least twice. Just ever. But it was within the same year, I think. So it was a crummy time to have to, it's not fun if you've had that, but even just the regular old cold or flu, it's surprising how much that can just like totally mess up your your routine. Missing work or school, all that kind of stuff, not having energy to do fun stuff. It's a bit of a challenge sometimes. But anyway, I hope you feel better soon. And yeah, again, thanks for coming out despite being sick, or maybe we can kind of distract you from the sickness here. Basic Geeks back as well. Thank you so much for coming back. It's good to see you. Basic Geek says, are talking about just American animation, or are we including anime and European animation? I mean, I think we gotta, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to like the big topic. And as you can see, I did some really crazy good research here where I just Googled animated movies, which doesn't even cover TV stuff. So that's another thing. For different decades, this is not all the decades, but again, 5 minutes before the stream, I was like, okay, let's get going. I think we have to include all world animation, and that's something that I try to do on the channel a decent amount in general too. Is like I don't just want to talk about the new big Hollywood animated movie or like a new animated show from the US. It's really nice to get different perspectives. I did my video on Australian animation a million years ago. I have sort of been working on a Canadian animation video for a very long time. So anyway, yeah, it has to be world for sure. Because, like, yeah, American animation specifically, you get people talking about, like, the golden age of American animation. And it just doesn't, you know, it feels like it's already been defined. Not to say that I agree with people talking about, like, oh, this is the golden age of American animation. But yeah, it's got to be world. We got to account for Europe. We got to account for Australia, and definitely for Japan and the rest of Asia. Yeah, there's a lot to get into, so we will get there, and we can just kind of chat. Obviously, this is never a big serious thing. We're not trying to start a fight. But yeah, Ugo, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Ugo says, so now we fly ever free. I have a feeling this is a quote. Are these song lyrics? Should I be singing this? We're free before the thunderstorm. On towards the wilderness our quest carries on. Far beyond the sundown. Far beyond the moonlight, deep inside our hearts and all our souls. It's yet another time where I should probably get the reference and I just don't. but I like reading it. Sorry, I'm also playing with my cat's feet off camera, and she's like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna try to go to sleep. Right? Yeah, she's not super into it. Okay, fine. Christian says, yeah. So like Ranma half, yeah, we talked about it the other week. It's pretty good, but I don't like how it ends. But did they have one? Was it just one season of that show? Was it 2 seasons? I have a feeling it didn't run for too long, but I'm not sure. All in all, it's a good, funny show with good gags. I will probably do it. Where is it, by the way, to watch? Did we cover that before? Is it on Crunchyroll? I was on Crunchyroll a lot this past week, so I'll maybe talk about some of the things I was watching there. But anyway, I do want to check that out after we talked about it the other time. Zep says, have you seen the 2 pilots for the canceled Crash Bandicoot show? No. I'm immediately Googling this. Hold on. As is tradition. List of things. Hang on just 1 second. I'm getting something together here. Dream Rex. What's today? The 8th? It's the 8th. Okay. Not valid. Oh. I just wanted to get this here. Is that? There we go. Ranma again, because I haven't watched it yet. So it's on another list, but I'm doing it again here. But yeah, I need to look into canceled Crash show. Sounds crazy. So was this like recently uncovered stuff, like lost media kind of deal? Or is it just a long-running thing and like it's just something I should check out? Well, stuff immediately comes up on YouTube and everything. 2021. Oh. Okay. There's a whole thing. Yeah, there's a whole thing to dig into on that. So I'll have to do that. I'll have to look into the details. But I would be very interested about that because obviously the games, especially like the remasters of the original trilogy and the 4th game, It's About Time, killer animation, and they just straight up grab professional voice actors who work on a lot of, you know, American animation shows to voice the characters, so it has that vibe. It feels like that would be a slam dunk, but I don't know. I would love to find out why they felt the need to cancel. But yeah, I assumed it would have been a thing from like the late 90s that got canceled. But hang on here. Yeah, I should really kick into overdrive and get caught up on the chat, and just because I don't want to fall too far behind. But anyway, Christian says Perfect Blue is a good horror movie though. It's been a long time. I did see Perfect Blue a long time ago. And yeah, it's super famous. That is when I would. Oh, it's Satoshi Kon too. Yeah, I've seen some of his other movies as well. It's just accessibility. Like if it's available somewhere, I'll rewatch something in a heartbeat, you know? But if it's like buried or it's on one of the weird streaming services that just aren't as common or that I don't happen to have, it takes more effort, so it's harder to find the time for some of that stuff. So I'll take a look. But I would like to rewatch Perfect Blue as well as some other of his movies, if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, Peak says, watching Dragon Ball for the first time. Love it. Whoa! Tell us more. Yeah, tell us some more of your first thoughts. I mean, we don't have to get into spoiler stuff, but that's exciting. Yeah, that was a big one. That was probably one of the first anime I was ever exposed to. Hang on a second. I want to adjust my monitor volume here. That's better. Very cool. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously it's super famous and super good, and apparently still is today, although I have not, I'm not caught up. But that's great. That's great. I'm really glad you've been checking it out. Okay, Ugo says Satoshi Kon is a great guy. Too bad he died and was never able to finish his last movie. I heard something about that. Yeah, and I think they maybe even teased it in, it's not Paprika, is it? They teased it in the last movie he did finish, right? I think there was a little like movie theater marquee that's like, oh, and this movie too, and it was a little Easter egg. That was the next thing they were working on. So yeah, I heard a little something about that. But yeah, he definitely had an impressive career regardless. Christian clarifies here that Ranma one half is on Hulu. Okay, I don't have Hulu, but I might be able to get there anyway through like a friend's like a friend's account or something. So I'll take a look. I think there was, what else was it? Oh yeah, I was watching something else on one of the unofficial streaming sites for animation and loved it. Like that site has been around for so long and it's surviving somehow, and it's such a great resource for watching both animated shows and movies, especially anime. So very glad to still have that around. Geek is reminding us that Dr. Stone New World, which is the third season, season 3 part 2. Oh, okay, so they broke it up into little chunks, coming out in October. I'll put that down again. I've definitely put Dr. Stone on one of the previous lists. I need to keep reminding myself of it for sure, because when we read about it previously, I was like, yeah, sounds neat, sounds cool. We'll have to check it out. Ugo talking about some more Satoshi Kon stuff. Perfect Blue is good, but I like Tokyo Godfathers. Paprika is way too good. Paprika is way better than Inception. That was all. So, I mean, some of you guys are definitely much younger than I am. But I can definitely say that when Inception first came out, what was I, like high school, I guess? It was a while ago. So high school time, obviously a big deal. It was very famous. It kind of had early memes, primitive internet memes about Inception and the Inception womp, like horn sound. But I bring it up because then as soon as I got to college, all that any of the film kids could talk about was that Paprika was Inception and that Paprika was better than Inception. And I would probably agree overall, and part of that is just because I happen to like animation a lot more in general than a lot of live action stuff. But outside of that, yeah, I don't know, just execution, pacing, just our cast of characters in Paprika I find more interesting too. So I'm on board with you with that, Ugo. And I mean, they're not the same movie, but obviously there are plenty of similarities there. So totally get it. And I would very much rather rewatch Paprika than Inception most days. Most days. Every once in a while, you want something more Hollywood and kind of corny. Okay. Zep clarifies that it was just 2 years ago. Yeah, 2021 for those crash pilots. The canceled Crash show. But yeah, it looks like there's some good resources here online. So I'll have to yeah, I'll do some digging. We'll see whether it's worth a video, but I would love to see some footage from that canceled show. Let's see. Zep also says, I think the CTR, the fighter, not the racing game, is crap. Doesn't even work. No online, just a little. Oh yeah, there was a Crash Team like platform fighter thing, or was it like an arena fighter game that's like a live service thing? I had heard about it before it released, never played it or checked it out. I don't think I even heard like reviews about it or anything. But I'm not too surprised to hear that it didn't go over super well after the fact. Also, what is this? What is Thunderbirds Are Go? Just gonna open that up in another tab real quick. Have you been playing anything good recently, Zup? Have you come across anything that's actually fun to play lately? Okay, let's see. Geek says, on the first saga of Z, you're on the first saga. Okay, Dragon Ball Z. Just got to the classic 9000 meme today. That's very exciting. I always think that's kind of fun. Just, coming across a famous moment in a movie or a show that has kind of been memed to death. It's interesting to come across the origins. And this is a really old one, of course, but when I was growing up too, the even just the Star Wars stuff. Of course, I was aware of all the famous Star Wars lines before I'd even seen the movies. So by the time I actually watched Empire, It was a totally different perspective on all of those famous lines and scenes and that stuff. So it's fun. It's fun, but yeah, I'm glad you've been enjoying it. It would definitely take some effort to go through all of the DBZ stuff through the ages, but you know, if you're into it, yeah, just keep going. The Incredible Mr. Limpet. I don't like that movie. Ugo was asking Dragon Ball Kai or just the OG, and okay, you guys we're clarifying. Awesome. Zep says Crash Team Rumble. That's what it was. That's the CTR. Okay, online doesn't work, and it's just like you kind of fight and you get power ups. Okay, that almost sounds like Power Stone to me. I don't know if you guys know the Power Stone games. They're pretty old. But yeah, kind of like that, like tiny little arena. You try to get as many power-ups as you can so you can beat the other characters out very quickly. Those are great games, by the way. The Power Stone games are a lot of fun. Zup says I bought Crash 2 PS1 version for the silver PS2. Okay, all right. So getting into some retro stuff. Nice. Yeah, obviously classic. I probably like 2 and 3 of the original trilogy more than 1. It's in jet. I don't know. Would you guys agree the first game in a series or like the first movie in a franchise just tends to be rough in general? We could also say like season 1 of a show just tends to be kind of, they're working out the kinks. You know, it's a whole bunch of people. They have different ideas about what the thing should be and what the audience wants. So, yeah, I tend to feel that about the first entry of a particular thing. Christian says, if you don't have Hulu, someone posted the entirety of Ranma 1/2 on YouTube in subs and dub. Wow, I wonder how, because it's all in full screen 4K. Good question. Yeah, I would assume if it was on a major service like Hulu, that they would have also put it into some kind of copyright protection system. But then again, if there is upscaling happening, like really intense upscaling to 4K that's just automated, I guess there's a loose chance that it just looks different enough that the copyright systems don't recognize it. But that doesn't seem very likely to me. Like those systems are pretty advanced by this point. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, okay. I'll keep this incredibly short, unless someone really wants to dig into it. I am I not even going to? Okay. Here's one for sure, but there are definitely other ones. We can't watch it. I'll definitely get. Oh, great, we get an ad too. I'll move this for now. There has been a rash of TV show intros, specifically for animated stuff, and even more specifically for, yeah, anime intros, where some people, I don't know if it's just this person or a bunch of people doing this, they upscale for one thing, so they're using automated upscaling tools to crank stuff that's in native 1080p to 4K. So that's one thing. It's mostly fine. I don't really care. They're also not up-resing, but you know what I mean, increasing the frame rate to 60 FPS. This is a terrible idea, and I hope I don't have to explain to any of you guys why this is a terrible idea for something that is animated media. It has to come from like the video game world, because in video games the more frames the better. That's a superior experience. In animation, a higher frame rate and smoother motion does not mean better at all. And it really intensely disrupts the original work to a degree where I think it's almost a little bit like offensive. And I'll stop talking about it now because I got really fired up about it. I shot a video on just about this topic. It was like 20 minutes long of me just rambling about this. And I just came to the conclusion, like, if you know why it's bad, you know why it's bad and you agree with me. I don't need to make this. And if you don't get why it's bad, I don't think I'll be changing your mind you know? So I decided not to do it or go through with it. It really frustrates me that people have been doing that, where it's just like, oh, 60 FPS is better. Everybody wants 4K 60 FPS on everything. So let's just do that. And it blows my mind. Blows my mind. How people could think it's good. It's like motion smoothing on TVs. Like anyone who actually uses those like motion smoothing options, motion interpolation, it hurts. Like it gives me motion sickness. It's really bad. And it's very frustrating when you can't find the original version of a theme or an opening for a show, except for in terrible 60 FPS with frame generation and like motion interpolation stuff. So I apologize for getting into it at all. It makes me kind of mad. I do not like it. Anyway, sorry. I really need to get caught up though now. Ugo says, I would watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. They might have the audio not line up exactly, so you just have to have the windows up. Gotcha. Yeah, so there are ways around the copyright stuff that might work. And Geek's also reminding us that the One Piece live action is in less than a month. Is it that soon? That's crazy. That's crazy town. I just kept thinking, probably because it's been so long that we've been hearing about it, it just felt like, oh, it's way off in the distance. Almost felt like it was never going to show up, but in a month or less than a month. Yeah, get ready for some hot takes. Not from me necessarily, but a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions on on the live action adaptation. So, fingers crossed. There have been good signs, positive signs, but yeah, who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Zup says Iron Man 3 times, which I appreciate. That has a real internal logic to it. I like that. It's also almost definitely the best movie in the Iron Man series, right? Not necessarily all of Marvel, but Iron Man specifically. Geek says older anime like Ranma and Ian or Lane, also on YouTube. Companies don't really care. Yeah, and that happens with some American stuff too. Like you can find really old Looney Tunes stuff for free that's unofficial, or like home movies. Home Movies, the old Adult Swim show that I love to death, and I made a video on it a long time ago. You can just, I'm pretty sure it's still all on YouTube. They're just like, whatever. Whatever. HBO is not being kept up at night because people are watching home movies on YouTube in like 480p, you know? Anyway. And Geek asks, have you heard of the YouTube Family Guy free episode pipeline? Probably not to the degree that you're talking about it. My familiarity with that kind of stuff is just like the awful cut-ups, the awful like out of sequence stuff where here's 3 minutes of an episode from the middle and then they go back to the first 3 minutes, and this is all to avoid copyright stuff, of course. So that's all I know, and that's how it was definitely like 5 or 6 years ago, or even before, where that was the only way that people could get up whole episodes, but only in pieces. So if there's more information on that, or like if you want to sort of dip down into the iceberg some more, go ahead and let me know. But that's really all I know about the weird relationship between YouTube and like Family Guy clips. Anyways, Up says there's also a Crash Bandicoot 1 cutscene that's like a cartoon. Yeah, no, I think they have a pretty strong relationship. I mean, it's Naughty Dog, of course, or at least originally it was Naughty Dog. I forget which company did the remasters or the remakes of the old games. But yeah, it seems very strongly like they're into animation, specifically Western animation, and they were just trying to get there. they wanted to do more of that, and I think for the most part they've done a great job, especially like I said in the remakes. Really good CG animation, high horsepower stuff, especially for cutscenes. Great voice acting. I'm sure if we looked up just like the casting for the voice actors of those games, it would be people who have done a million different things that we've all watched before. So I'm down with it. Yeah, I think it's great. But yeah, it is sad to hear that the show didn't go through, but I'm sure there's a story behind that one. Ugo says smoother animation does not equal better animation. AI enhanced is a good video about this by Noodle. There you go. Awesome. I think I've seen that come up before. I don't think I've actually watched through the whole video, but yes, because there definitely is that idea. I think mostly among people who don't have a lot of experience with animation or even trying out animation for themselves, like there is that impulse like, oh, there's only 12 different images per second. Why not make that more? Like, why not just take the time or use different tools to increase the number of cells, basically, displayed per second, more like a live action movie or a game or something like that? You could argue that that works for CG animation specifically, sometimes, but yeah, for 2D animation, absolutely does not help. It's I think it's like noticeably bad. So anyway, yeah, but I didn't want to get too far into that. But it is upsetting to come across that kind of thing, especially when you just like, I just want to watch the intro to Spy Family. I want to watch it as it was animated by the team of professionals who animated it, you know? Like, I don't want to see your little weird dolled up version that you did with some kind of AI software. But it's just a grinds my gears kind of thing. It's not very serious at all. Thunderbirds Are Go is a puppet film. So I don't know if it counts as an animated film for one thing, but also, is this supposed to be like, is this the inspiration for Team America World Police? Because it seems like yes, so far. Oh my gosh. Oh, well, this is like a newer thing. Where's the original one? Here we go. Yeah, I mean, that's almost one-to-one Team America stuff, right? Wow, I never made that connection. I had never heard of this movie before at all. Wow, that's actually pretty interesting. Okay, so Geek is expanding on the Family Guy YouTube stuff. Geek says a lot of accounts that post Family Guy episodes were foreign gamers and vlogs at one point, but they either got hacked or they sold their channels. Oh, okay. So like they had a certain number of subscribers or something like that, and then yeah, hacked or sold off, and now they're just being used to post Family Guy clips. Oh no. Wow, that's so much more sad than what I was expecting for that whole topic. Oh my goodness, that is sad. And Ugo asks, Thunderbirds, are you talking about the remake they did on Amazon Prime? No, so I was just talking about apparently the original. I'd never heard of this before, but it does look like there was like a CG kind of remake or something somewhat recently. So if that's what it is, if you have some more info, feel free to let us know. But yeah, I don't know. I'll do a little bit of research here. I'll do a little bit of digging into like how we can even go about making an argument for like, oh, this is the best decade of animation history. And more than anything, I want to guess at what other people would say. Like, what would most people say was the best decade, and why? Is it just because some of their favorite movies happen to show up in a particular decade? What's the deal? Another angle we can potentially take here is like, look for terrible listicles. How about this? Look for the best animated movies ever made, and we try to see if there's any sort of pattern in terms of the decades in which they were released, or like trends that they represent for the history of animation, whether most of them are American or world animation. So we'll mess around with some of that. We'll just kind of look around and see what we can find. Coming into this, I can't say that I have a very strong argument or position. So it's more about being convinced or just like hearing what some of you guys have to say about the whole thing. And anyway, so we'll talk about some of that, but as always, feel free to just like interrupt and talk or ask about something else completely different. I'm cool with that. That's what the streams are for. Yeah, or just have any questions for me in general. Yeah, just let me know. I'm also going to move the chat over here because I think it's kind of nice to have the chat on the actual stream screen. So let's try that out and see if we can make it happen without ruining everything. Here we go. Ugo does have more information on Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds was an old puppet show in the UK, and this is what inspired Team America. There we go. That's what I thought. There's an issue in the UK due to the other puppet shows. Team A giving Team America a PG-13, not R in the UK. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more behind the scenes there. Ahmet, welcome to the stream. Thanks for being here. Ahmet says, I believe you will become a great influencer in the future. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if I want that to happen, but that's a very nice thing of you to say. Also, please let me know if I did the incorrect pronunciation for your name there. But my guess was Ahmet. Geek says, I have to go. But I'll say the 70s is the most infliction or like most influential for modern animation. Cool. Yeah, no big deal. Yep, sorry you have to go, but thank you so much for coming by, Geek. Always happy to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. And yes, basically, I think there's a strong argument there for 1970s. I mean, there's kind of a reason that I did the whole 70s animation stuff, which was only a slight disaster in the end. It was definitely a time for filmmaking in general where there's a lot of movement and a lot of progression, not just in the US, but all around the world. And there were, if we can just get a smattering here of some 70s animated movies that I didn't even get to talk about. I didn't get to talk about Wizards in detail. That's another Ralph Bakshi movie. I didn't get to talk about Belladonna of Sadness, which is a famous Japanese movie that I saw in the theater and is insane. Like, and definitely not for children. So if you don't want more adult content and like really dark storytelling, do not watch Belladonna of Sadness. But regardless, very interesting, and especially interesting in the context of like the progression of Japanese animation, which we now just refer to as anime. Aristocats, I would have loved to talk about. It doesn't feel like a 70s movie at all. It does feel very old-fashioned, I think. Part of that is because it comes from Disney. And yeah, even the Asterix movies, French stuff. I haven't watched a ton of them, but I am familiar with that kind of thing. A lot was happening, and there were different ideas of like what could be done with animation, who animation was for. Obviously, I mentioned Belladonna was more for an adult audience. I would also argue that Bakshi stuff, which includes Fritz the Cat, not so much his Hobbit movie, or Heavy Traffic wasn't him too, was it? Either way, there was lots of adult, like seedy, grimy adult animation movies in the 70s, and it was probably the first time that those really started to come to the forefront, at least as features. There was like grimy adult animation in the old days, meaning like 30s and 40s and stuff, but it was typically shorts. And even, you know, animated features in general, it didn't really come about until the 50s, so I feel like that's where we have to cut it off for the discussion in general. It has to be the 1950s onward, because before that we're just talking about shorts, which, while they're very important to the history of animation, especially in the US, it was a smaller world. It was a much smaller landscape of animation back in the day. So, ooh, and Castle of Cagliostro? Cagliostro? I apologize, but I love the movie. Early Miyazaki stuff, right? Very good. All right, Zep says, we need Crash Bandicoot. Zep is going to die on this hill. We need more Crash Bandicoot. Do you mean the show specifically? Ugo says, I wish Howard Ashman didn't die, but he helped start the 1990s in terms of animation. 100%. Did I pull that up, by the way? Well, we'll get to... We need to talk about the 90s a lot, too. This is overwhelming, but we'll get to it. But I agree, Ugo. So if people don't know, Howard Ashman was technically one half of Ashman and Menken, right? Who composed the music, and specifically like the show tunes and theatrical numbers for a lot of the Disney Renaissance movies. I think starting with Little Mermaid onward. Howard Ashman died relatively young, but he was also kind of the mentor. I believe Menken was like really young. He might have even been like a college student when he started out with this stuff. But Ashman was definitely a huge driving force behind the quality of those movies and why they're so well remembered and well loved. because as some other people have commented on, when we're talking about the Disney Renaissance movies, which is what Little Mermaid, uh, Lion King, Aladdin, and the others, sort of ending with The Emperor's New Groove, so much of the popularity came down to the songs, specifically, the big musical numbers that everybody knows and loves and sings along to when they're rewatching the movies. That is a huge, huge part of the popularity of those movies. That's not to say that like the animation of those movies or the storytelling is not good, but in terms of memorability and just like enduring popularity, so much of the credit has to go to the music for sure. So yeah, in total agreement there with Hugo. I am on board with the comment, but yeah, it would have been fascinating to see what Ashman would have done if he had lived a much longer life. Maybe he would have left Disney. Do you think he would have left to go with DreamWorks when Katzenberg split from Disney? That would have been fascinating. Anyway, Zep says, am I the only one who got scared when I first saw the 1990 TMNT movie? No. The short answer, Zep, is no. I'm going to pull up some images real quick just so everyone has a clear idea of what we're talking about here. But it's this one. It's the live action TMNT movie. We were talking about the Ninja Turtles a lot last week too, by the way. I think it was last week. But yeah, just like neat costume designs, but the lighting and the cinematography of the whole movie, it just looks so cheap. And that makes it sort of more upsetting, I think, than it would have been otherwise, and definitely more upsetting than it would have been if it was just a straight animated movie. Like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But who knows? Who knows what their motivations were at the time? Maybe there's some behind the scenes stuff that talks about why they wanted to do live action for that one. I feel like they've learned their lesson since then, right? There was the CG Ninja Turtles movie, but otherwise it's been shows, animated shows, games here and there, and more animated movies. So yeah, totally different vibe for modern Ninja Turtles media. But I'm generally happy about the way things have gone there. Zep says, not the part where Shredder got crushed. The Turtles costumes. Yeah, it's the costumes for sure, overall. Like, just, and that's why I wanted to show some screen caps. Just, that's all you need. It's bad. It's really bad. Okay, so, yeah, what can we say here? What can we say here about the decades of animation? Okay, so, in my very personal opinion, 50s and 60s kind of get eliminated right off the bat. And I'm not trying to say that the 50s and 60s animation wasn't good. I'm not trying to say it wasn't important or influential. It absolutely was. You also had hybrid stuff like Mary Poppins, right? Where it was just impressive that they could even combine live action and animation. Same thing with Incredible Mr. Limpet, that also has hybrid stuff going on. But to me, most animated movies, specifically movies, not shows, from the 60s feel outdated. They don't feel like they've aged especially well. And then if we're talking about 60s animated television, I'm sorry, it's just really not my thing most of the time, and it's aged even more poorly, I feel, than the 60s animated features. So just based on personal preference, 50s and 60s get crossed off, where they were sowing the seeds for a lot of, what would become a big giant industry around animated feature films, but it wasn't quite there yet. It wasn't quite there yet. They didn't quite know who the audiences really were or who the audiences should be that they were going after. Obviously, a ton of stuff was still very much focused on kids, really young audiences. And then, as we already touched on, whoa, the 70s is an explosion for filmmaking as a whole. And the scope of animation expands enormously as well. Like, we have adult animation is a thing now, on top of really solid stuff that works for both kids and adults. Well, for some people, that's Fantastic Planet. I happen to hate the movie. But plenty of Disney work from the 70s, I think, works very well still, even if it does feel kind of dated. 70s animated TV, kind of falls into a similar boat, unfortunately, where I just think it's not quite there. And I guess my hot take overall on animated TV stuff is that it's not especially interesting to me until probably the 90s. 80s American animation, not for me at all. I'm really not a fan of it. 80s anime, much more interesting. And there's a lot more to talk about there. But if we're talking about animation all over the world at once, the 90s is when I just see so many things crop up that I still love today. Part of that is definitely the nostalgia. I'll pull up some 90s show stuff as well. But if we move over to features, my goodness, same here. It's an explosion of scope, of scale, of just the technical prowess of 2D animation, as well as possibly the most important technological advancement of animation ever, maybe, is computer-generated imagery and animation. Pixar knocking stuff out of the park immediately. What year was Toy Story? 95? From that point on, to this day, it is, 50% or much, much more of all the feature film animation being produced. Anyway, I'll catch up on chat, but these are some of the thoughts that are coming to mind as I just sort of glance over some of the notable movies and shows, animated movies and shows from these different time periods. If you disagree, please yell at me now. This is your chance. If you got thoughts, go for it. This is what it's all about. Let's get into it. Ugo says, oh wait, sorry, Zup has another comment. Don't get me started on Michael Bay Turtles. You could, how about this, Zup? You can write like a whole book on Michael Bay Turtles. Either a book or like a 5-hour YouTube video you could do on some of the issues surrounding the Michael Bay Turtles. That was a very specific moment in time, wasn't it? That was a very specific moment in the history of entertainment. CG, Michael Bay, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Ugo says, as a child, I saw on a discount VHS what I thought was TMNT2, but it was just the making of TMNT2. I can't believe my disappointment, or I couldn't believe my disappointment when I saw that at home. That's awful. That's really awful. And why? Like, did it just look like the full movie in the store, but it had a little line of text in 2-point font that said, like, behind the scenes, featurettes? That wasn't a thing for so long. Usually what they did on VHSs was, like, you have the movie proper, and then if you didn't stop it in time, it would keep playing, and at the very end, they were like, and now, here is how the movie was made. A very clumsy way to implement like bonus features and stuff, but that was the early days. Christian Bailey points out Street Fighter 2 the movie, which I don't know if I had even heard of this before. Obviously Street Fighter 2 it's got to still be the most successful entry in the series, right? It's been re-released so many times. I do remember the Mortal Kombat live action movie from the 90s. I think everybody does. Mostly out of PTSD more than anything else. But we might have to check this out. And look, it's free everywhere. 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. Are you kidding me? This sounds great. How do you feel about it, Christian? Zep says you need the Crash Bandicoot pilots. Yeah, don't worry. I got it over. I have another tab. I have another tab that has a few different clips saved on YouTube. So I'll have to. I can't watch them on stream, of course, because I would maybe get in trouble. It's unreleased, so maybe not. But either way, I'll save it for later. But yeah, this is something we might have to check out. Kind of surprised that it seems to be rather well received, or at least in terms of fans being into it, right? Interesting. Okay. Sorry, I feel like I should make my... This should be smaller. I'm blocking so much of the screen. I apologize. Phew. There we go. A little jigsaw puzzle here. Okay. Christian says DreamWorks' first movie was Ants, which I never thought the first DreamWorks movie was 3D. Yeah, I feel like I looked this up the other day, Ants was definitely their first CG movie, right? For some reason, I thought. No, you're totally right. Yeah. So for some reason, I thought Road to El Dorado came first. It did not. That was in 2000. Ants was in 98. Also in 2000 was Chicken Run, which is fascinating. So even that little revelation, whoa, they were trying a lot of different stuff within just the first couple years of operation. So yeah, I assume the decision to go with Ants first was just like, okay, obviously Pixar is making waves. I don't think Pixar had been bought out by Disney at that point. If I remember correctly, that came a little bit later. So they were still kind of their own independent thing, even though they had connections to Lucasfilm, right? And I guess Apple in a way. Um, so I'm guessing the decision for Ants was just like, we need something. That this is the cutting edge. We need to show that we have plenty of money to produce this kind of thing. We can do CG too. We know what the kids are into. And like if we're being very kind to Ants, it's not a disaster. Ants is not over the hedge. Ants is not even B movie. Like it's not great, but it's really not bad. At least in my memory. Um, but yeah, I think I just thought El Dorado was first because 2D animation. It looks like a 90s Disney movie. So I assumed, okay, that was first. 2D animation's older. That must have been before Ants. Um, yeah. For a while, I also thought that Woody Allen directed Ants, which I'm pretty sure is not the case. No, it was directed by Eric Darnell and Tim Johnson. But just because he was in the movie for a minute, I was like, did he direct Ants? He's directed a lot of stuff, you know? It wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. Um, anyway, Ugo says this video, so is this behind the scenes thing. This video was about 35 to 40 minutes, so it wasn't like just 5 minutes at the end. Yeah, that sucks. Like it was the whole tape, it sounds like, of just behind the scenes stuff. That's wild. And you can tell too, like the VHS days, you could tell just by the weight of the tape how much was on the reels. So like a little half-hour tape of SpongeBob episodes was super light compared to, you know, tape 1 of Titanic was really heavy. So it was probably disappointing as soon as you got it out of the case. You're like, this maybe isn't a whole movie. It's pretty funny. But yeah, traumatizing. That would be awful. Like you're excited to watch the movie, especially as a kid, and then it just turns out it's not even there. Christian says Street Fighter 2, the movie, watched on YouTube, but I think it's more about the fight than the story. Music is very good, animation was very good, but the story's non-existent. Interesting. Okay, so would you say kind of par for the course for Street Fighter narratives in general? Or did it just seem like they kind of cranked the movie out fast and they weren't thinking too much about the story stuff? Zup says Ninjago Day of the Departed. Is that a real thing in Ninjago? Or are you like coming up with dramatic story ideas for them? Wow, for real. I think I'm just like walking down memory lane at this point. I'm like, oh, I have something to say about this movie and this movie. Maybe eventually it'll congeal into an argument. Real quick, I wanted to mention, I watched Whisper of the Heart for the first time yesterday. Yesterday, I watched and finished Whisper of the Heart. I had never seen it before. I did not know what it was about, but it definitely falls into the category of what I would call lesser Ghibli. So basically anything not directed by Miyazaki but produced by Ghibli is nowhere near as famous and as popular. But I was very impressed. I really liked Whisper of the Heart a lot. I liked it a lot more than Up on Poppy Hill, which we can talk about some other time. My gosh, I can see why it would bore a lot of kids specifically, either in the 90s or today. But it's actually really good. It's really good, and it hits especially hard if you do any kind of creative work, you know, and you have your own history of trying to get into it and wondering whether you're good enough and all that kind of thing. It's It's actually kind of stunning. It's fantastic. So I was sad that I only, came across it or actually put the effort in to watch it just yesterday. It's been way too long. Zep says look it up for Ninjago. Okay, don't worry, I got my tabs. I'll put it on the list too. I got you. It's cool. Ninjago. Do you think that any of this music is going to get us in trouble? Oh no, it's totally a thing. Okay. It's a short? It's a television special. I see. Cool. Is it good? It seems like it's reviewed pretty well. 2016, so it's been a while. To be honest, I've never checked out any Ninjago stuff at all. I see it pop up on Netflix a decent amount, and also just as a kid, I was super into Lego stuff. So I was getting the Lego catalogs all the time in the mail, and waiting like months for a package to show up from Lego. So I did Bionicle a lot. I saw the Bionicle movie in the theaters, which was also had to be what, early 2000s? So we put that in the 2000s decade. I don't think it helps the case for the 2000s, but either way, it's there. All right, but yeah, feel free to share some more on that. But yeah, I've never checked out any Ninjago stuff, so let me know if it's good or if I should just stay away from it completely. I do want to come back to what people think are some of the best animated movies ever, although I don't like any of these sites, to be honest. Rotten Tomatoes is sort of useful for that. We'll check that out in a second. But what was the other thing? Enjoy this clickbait in the meantime. What else was I going to look up? Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I just want to have this tab as well. Yeah, Spirited Away is a heavy hitter, and that will absolutely show up on the list of, best animated movies ever made. Look at how, wow, B-Movie shows up. Oh, and Over the Hedge. And Flushed Away. I guess because they're memes? They're going to show up more often? Ugh, I think I saw all of those movies in the theater. Or most of them. We'll come back to this. But again, this is just kind of refreshing me what came out when and how I felt about it when it came out. 9. Wow. Are there like a million video essays on 9? It seems like the kind of thing where that would happen. Okay. All right. So let's take a brief trip. Oh, look. I bet this is here. One of the best animated movies ever made, right? Everybody loves a Mario movie. You'd be crazy not to love that movie. Okay, let's do a quick rundown. Toy Story 2, 90s. Toy Story 95. Wow, guys. Wow. Pixar's been hitting home runs forever. That's what they do. How many of these are going to be Pixar movies? Oh my gosh. Okay. Nemo, 03. Train Your Dragon, 10. That means it goes in 2010s. We're not stopping at 9. Inside Out, 15. Toy Story 3, 2010. Utopia, 2016. I don't agree with that at all, by the way. Up, 09. Toy Story 4, 19. Spider-Verse, 18. Coco, 17. Okay, so by far, we have got stuff from the 90s and 2000s and 2010s. I'm guessing a part of that is because this is Rotten Tomatoes and it just hasn't existed, as they point out here. I believe this is 25th anniversary-ish. I think that's what that means. But either way, it hasn't been around for the entire history of film, for obvious reasons. So I'm guessing there are just a lot more reviews available for movies that have released in somewhat recent decades. So I feel like there's a natural bias there. Also, for other obvious reasons, Rotten Tomatoes is not actually the definitive resource of what are the best animated movies or movies in general. It's just an idea. It's a vague idea of how critics felt about different movies at the time they were released. So clearly, animated movies and exclusively CG animated movies or hybrid stuff has dominated in terms of positive critical reception for at least the last 20 years, more like the last 25 years. Okay, so now we have an idea of how they feel about all this stuff. I'll just scroll down a little bit further. Here, I'll automate it. How about this while I talk? Christian says, favorite movie? Don't watch a lot of movies, so no favorite movie yet. Yeah, totally fair. That's another way that I thought about kind of approaching the whole argument is just what are some of my favorite things? What are some of my favorite movies? And when did they happen to come out? Does it feel like the quality is because of when they came out? Are they representative of larger movements in animation or things like that? And I don't think that's the case. And that's part of what makes this so difficult, other than it just being kind of a silly question in general. Like, we don't need to declare a winner in terms of artistic work. We never need to, although the internet happens to love that stuff. The internet loves pitting things against each other and saying definitively, this is the best one of this thing. That's just not how I feel about it in general. So that's one part of the situation here. But beyond that, I feel like if I was trying to answer this question when I was growing up, when I was like 12 years old, I probably would have been able to give a really solid answer. I probably would have said like, oh, the 90s, that's the best stuff. That's what I grew up with. They're really good movies that everybody likes. That's the best. Or like, oh, the 2000s, the early 2000s are the best decade because Ratatouille exists. Ratatouille remains one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. But there were also a ton of terrible movies released in the early 2000s. And there's, it was also a difficult time for 2D animation, especially in the US. People were just treating it like it was dead for the most part, especially in the late 2000s there. So if I was answering this when I was younger, I would have focused on American stuff because that's what I was exposed to. I would have just talked about my favorite Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks movies, and maybe a couple of more obscure things from other studios or companies. But these days, and this even connects to what you were saying just now, Christian, like the more you engage with, like the more that you dig into a specific hobby or an art form or something like that, and not like research even, but just consuming it. Oh, I'm into music a little bit. 10 years later, after you have just consumed and listened to and appreciated a huge amount of music, I think it just fuels this continuous desire for more and more, and specifically a desire for new and different things. So while growing up, I was almost exclusively focused on American animation. That expanded very quickly as I went through high school and definitely in college and after the fact. I wanted more, and there were so many things that I had missed out on just because they weren't readily available when I was a kid. And, a lot of that comes down to distribution, but also cultural exposure. I didn't know what an anime was for the longest time. I had no idea what the big famous movies were in other countries. Those connections just weren't there. And so expanding that to discussions of different decades of animation, it's really tough because as you watch more and more, it's like, oh, wow, there have been incredible contributions the whole way along. It's not like a pattern of, oh, things are just getting better and better or worse and worse, whatever. It's always diverse. And especially with the sheer amount of stuff being produced these days, it's even hard to keep up with. And it's really hard to summarize a particular decade and try to summarize, especially on a global scale, what this decade meant for animation, what it meant for CG technology, etc. Almost impossible. So just based on like personal preferences, I would probably be split between maybe like, 1970s is up there. That's sort of a finalist in this whole discussion. And then I would probably say 90s and then the early 2000s. Those would probably be my three finalists, just based on what I've been exposed to through the years and what I've really enjoyed and what has really affected me in terms of my appreciation for animation as a whole and just exposure to creativity and different ideas. And in that vein, I think stuff like Last Wish or Spider-Verse completely belongs here, because I really do feel that we're in a moment of transition, and not transition, but evolution and flux for really big budget animation, where technology has enabled the integration of 2D art. That has blown the doors wide open. And I don't think that this is something that will just end up being a trend 20 years from now. I think that 20 years from now we'll still be saying, oh yeah, that was a big deal. Like that was a really important moment. Even if it doesn't translate to every movie looking like that kind of stuff in the future, it was a big change. And clearly a lot of people are connecting with the artistic execution that's made possible by contemporary technology. Anyway, so there's a lot of rambling. I gave 3 decades of animation that I really, really love on a personal level. But it's definitely not the end of the discussion at all. And yeah, there's just so much to talk about, especially when we go past the US, you know, outside the borders. So anyway, that's that for now. Christian says there's a video about Street Fighter 2, the movie, on the YouTube channel Kyoto Video. The channel is about retro anime movies. Sick. Hold on, let me, well, I'll just put it here in the list, because I'll inevitably close out of a bunch of tabs by accident. So I'll just put it here. Kyoto, I think it's called Kyoto Video, right? Kyoto Video, and this is Street Fighter 2. Cool. I'll add that to the list. I'll take a look later on. That would be great. I wonder if they also make videos about the anime studio Kyoto Animation. I guess, well, that's not retro, is it? They've only been around since, I think, like the late 90s or early 2000s. But anyway, yeah, that was a lot. This has kind of broken my brain a little bit of just trying to wrap my head around how much has been made and how to even find all of the info of like what were the most significant movies of a particular decade. It's just tough. And you get a lot of junk. You get a lot of clickbaity kind of stuff. But yeah, anyway. And you know what? To be honest, part of this whole exercise was to try to get a sense for whether or not I would want to do another video series about a specific decade in animation history. Because I actually really enjoyed just talking about 70s animation stuff. It's so nice just to have a theme sometimes and just to have something to orbit around. And again, I mean, this is probably the 5th time I've said it today, but what a fascinating time for animation and filmmaking. So yeah, there we are. But yeah, 80s, I don't know, because 80s animated TV sucked so much, in the US at least. I don't know, it feels like that would be a limited pool, a limited well to draw from if I was going to do a video series on that. And then 90s animation, like, doesn't that almost seem too obvious? You would just run into so much of the Disney Renaissance stuff, it wouldn't quite work. Anyway. How long have I been going? About an hour. Okay. Well, we'll see. If people want to chat about other stuff, just let me know. But yeah, otherwise I'm just gonna like share random thoughts, I think, and hang out for a little bit longer. But yeah, and then at some point I'll have to drop off and do a bunch more work and do some cooking and things. But yes, this has been fun. I've really enjoyed just getting a weird loose grasp of what came out when and what I actually care about. Yeah, and wow, maybe that's the angle to take. If I was going to make some videos about 90s animation, maybe it would be great to just avoid the Disney movies altogether. Avoid the Disney movies and the Pixar movies. Now we're cooking. Yeah, because then there would be room for Cool World. There would be room for... Oh, I thought it was here. At some point I saw End of Evangelion. That wasn't 2000s, was it? No. End of Evangelion was the 90s, right? At the tail end. Ooh, James and the Giant Peach. Oh, that is a Disney movie, but still, you know what I mean. It's not a Disney Renaissance movie. That's a totally different vibe. Yeah, Henry Selick. I love that movie. That's great. And I don't think it gets nearly the amount of love as Nightmare Before Christmas, right? Nightmare Before Christmas, people are always talking about it. It's been, you know, merchandised to hell and back. It had, I think, multiple video games. It's also been in the Kingdom Hearts games. Do you guys think James and the Giant Peach had a video game? Do you think it had a licensed video game? Let's see. I can't tell if this stuff is fake, but maybe. I don't think so. At least not for this movie, right? Okay, this looks some kind of Kingdom Hearts thing. Okay, so the answer is no. The answer is no on that one. Yeah, Whisper of the Heart was so good. Page Master, I know some people who like that movie. I don't like that movie. Kind of the same goes for Fern Gully. Balto I loved growing up as well. So yeah, there's actually there's plenty of stuff to talk about with 90s animation outside of the Disney monopoly. You know, it really was getting to that point in the 90s of just like Disney is the biggest. They're in charge here. Christian says Charlie Brown is cool, but I think it's because I read all the comics and go at comics. So like after a month or two, maybe I'll go back to thinking it's lame. I mean, fair. Can you tell a little bit more about that? So you're reading comics on Go Comics. That's a platform, right? So is it like the original strips from way back when? Is it more recent stuff? How do you feel about that? I mean, I'll say in general, I really like the Charlie Brown stuff, the Peanuts strips in general. I read them a lot growing up. I watched some of the specials. There are a lot more specials that aren't as famous as like Christmas or Halloween or Thanksgiving. But interesting at the very least. Ugo says Cats Don't Dance is a good movie. You know what? I don't think I've ever actually seen it. And who made that? All I ever saw was on one of the VHS tapes we had for some other movie. There was, you know, beforehand, there was a little preview for Cats Don't Dance. And I was like, what is that? We never bought it. Yeah, so who directed? It was directed by Mark Dindal. Yes. Real quick, he directed Chicken Little. So when I was doing the Chicken Little video, I looked into some of his stuff. So yeah, I've never actually watched it. Is it streaming somewhere? Let's see. Amazon, maybe? It's a fur to riches story as Danny, a wisecracking cat with moves like Fred Astaire, heads to Hollywood on a quest to overcome the species barrier. Wow. Also, no, it's not free on Amazon, at least here. Christian says Cats Don't Dance is about racism in Hollywood. Wow, yeah, I mean, pulling out a phrase like species barrier is something. What studio was it? It wasn't Disney, right? There's no way. No. Turner Feature Animation, Warner Brothers. Okay, so Warner Brothers Animation, more or less. Ugo says Cats Don't Dance is also the first movie that Lauren Faust worked on. Oh, wow. And it might also be the first thing that she worked on right before the Powerpuff Girls. Interesting. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I should probably watch it. It doesn't seem like it's streaming a lot of places, so I'll have to... Just a helicopter there. But I should finally see it. I think it could be interesting. Yeah, Scott Bakula. Okay, sure, why not? Don Knotts is in there somewhere. Oh, and then they brought Don Knotts back for Chicken Little. I wonder if they have like a... I wonder if him and Mark Dindal like know each other or something. That would be interesting. But yeah, really cool to hear that Lauren Faust worked on the movie as well. And I mean, it looks good in general. And as a kid, I definitely assumed it was a Disney movie, like it was on that level of quality. So yeah, but and I'm sure there are plenty of people online who have kind of brought it back or talked about its merits. But just to watch it, I would love to check it out. Don't know if I would make a video on it or not, but yeah. So I'll put that on the list too. I don't know why I've just been talking about it. Okay. Oh boy. Cool. Oh yeah, an Iron Giant. I'm kind of glad we never brought up Iron Giant. I have mixed feelings about the Iron Giant. Yeah. But yeah, end of Evangelion. Ghost in the Shell, I was never into, and to be honest, I still am not. It's just really not for me. Um, yeah, it's one of those things I respect its influence and its impact, but I just don't. It's just not really my thing. Christian says it's really cool to see the characters grow and evolve, and new gags that would grow to be iconic. So it's cool. And read all the strips for free. It stopped because the creator is dead. For the Peanut stuff, you mean? For the Charlie Brown stuff? Sounds like. But I just wanted to double check. And then yeah, I mean, if you've been around the channel for a while, then you are aware of my sort of like Evangelion conversion of what was that? A year and a half ago or something. But yeah, End of Evangelion specifically is actually very good. It's very good. I really like the original ending to the series, but it's just a good movie. Like it doesn't feel like it's trying too hard. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like they were being forced to do something they didn't want to do. They really put their all into it, or at least that's the sense I get from the first Evangelion movie. Oh no, is this like slight fantasy nudity gonna get me in trouble? I think we're okay as long as nobody tattles. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Ugo says, for what are you talking about? This is really what comic? Oh, Digimon Adventure Japan is always top 5 in Japan. Should give it a listen. Okay. Okay, cool. Here, I'll put it on here. Digimon Adventure. Boop. Cool. Yeah, yeah, that's another thing. I need to look into some new music for videos and stuff and streams. I've just kind of run out of ideas on that, and with the copyright stuff, it's very tricky to get some good music going. Yeah, no, I like this movie. I don't like the other Evangelion movies, just to be clear, but this one, yeah, this one works pretty well. Yeah, kind of a lot of nudity, huh? Yeah, let's let's move on. Okay. Oh, and Anastasia. That's something that I can guarantee there are at least like 15 different video essays. Like, let's really dig into Anastasia. Let's talk about that one. Not saying that's a bad thing, but it's that kind of movie. Oh, and Pokemon, the first movie. Oh, I have it pulled up already. Man. A seminal moment of childhood, for sure. Ugo says, I like the clapping penguin. Congratulations for Evangelion. Pen Pen. We love Pen Pen. Whoa! Are you seeing this? Christian says, should I start with rebuild movies or what? Because I heard the original was dark and fan servicey. Okay, so here's the thing. I'll keep this brief, but I could talk about this for a very long time. No. Please don't do the rebuild. I just don't think the rebuild movies are especially good movies. Like, they feel more modern, if that's what you're into. And they're actually much worse in terms of fan service stuff, by the way. Because one of the best things I can say about Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is the original series, yes, they're fan servicey to the point where they even say, like in the promo for the next episode, they're like, oh, tune in next time and we'll have lots more fan service for you. Like, they're very aware of that. And it's worse when you consider that, you know, plenty of the characters are like teenagers. Problematic. That's a whole other topic. Anyway, the direction of the original show is so good. It automatically elevates everything. Everything feels more carefully executed. Everything feels highbrow because of how good the direction is. Usage of music, or the times when they choose not to use any music, how they execute like awkward scenes between characters, including kind of fan servicey scenes, they tend to feel like uncomfortable because it's all from the perspective of a character who is depressed, incredibly antisocial, and just like emotionally repressed in general, like has a lot of problems. And so it's not fun. It's not like fun, happy encounters and like young love. It's like, oh no, I have to confront the things I hate about me and think about whether anyone else would ever care about me and stuff like that. So like, yeah, the original series is kind of a masterpiece. I think that the hype is completely deserved, and it goes all the way off the rails. So don't look up spoilers or anything if you can manage it, because it, for the first like 15 or 16 episodes, it just feels like a stupid anime story with stupid robots and just like nonsense. And then it slowly becomes the best thing. It slowly becomes something that makes perfect sense and that has a huge amount of creativity behind it and that is trying to say something very specific about people. And I think it's all really fantastic. And End of Evangelion just takes that, it's a more, I don't know, it takes it to another level. It's also much more digestible than the original series. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. The Rebuild movies are okay. I just generally don't think they're very good. And yeah, they play to the fans way too much. So I'm not really on board with that. Anyway, Christian says Anastasia is based on a play by 20th Century Fox. A play, like a stage play. Wow, interesting. Yeah, well, and of course the historical events, although I think they changed quite a bit from the historical story. But anyway, yeah, so I briefly wanted to look at this. I had no idea that the critic reviews for the Pokemon movie were so bad. That's a huge gap. People were so mad about the gap between critical reception and audience reception to the Mario movie. This is a whole different ballgame here. The film is humorless, boring, impenetrable, no Oxford comma, and with animation of such staggeringly low quality that it constitutes an insult to cinema goers of all ages. Wow, extremely low budget Japanimation. That's what people used to say before anime was a big thing. Were it only more proficiently executed, would rival Scooby-Doo as the most astounding work of art in the 20th century. That phrase didn't quite work. Either way, wow. People were not into that. I mean, I guess I could do a rewatch, but there's some okay animation in the Pokemon movie. Come on, not like dialogue sequences, but there's actiony stuff. The fights are kind of well staged. I don't know. That seems, I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of critics were just really mad that they had to go see the movie for work. Also, how do I become this person? How do I become a YouTube person who gets reviews on, and like a review like this, a fun little movie with cute characters and animation? I can write stuff like that. Can I be on Rotten Tomatoes? Anyway. Wow. I'll probably close out soon, but I was shocked, completely shocked, to see that the critical reception was so low for the Pokemon movie. And also, those movies made drastically less money as they went on. I think within a year, or even 6 months, they released the Gen 2 movie. Performed terribly. I think it made half of the box office of the first movie. So, anyway, it's a talk for another day. But yeah, I think I'll wind down here and I'll go take care of my chores and dinner and everything. And yeah, lots of work to do, but I promise I'm working on other videos. I promise I will release a video at some point again here. But as always, my usual excuses, just really busy with work stuff, and also I'm traveling this week, so half of my week is gone, you know, just doing that stuff. So I have to adjust a little bit. It'll be fun, but just, you know, mixing up the routine can be tough sometimes. Anyway, well, I've personally enjoyed just even just floating the idea of a best decade of animation. As usual, this is not an essay. This is not me coming at you and trying to convince you this is my point and here's why. I just really enjoy talking about this stuff with people, and I'm so glad that we've gotten to hang out with people here in the chat and just have a nice time. Nice change of pace from my other work. So yeah, really great. What else? I don't know. Other streams. More videos coming at some point. Feel free to check out stuff like that. I don't have a Patreon anymore, so I don't have to plug that. Although YouTube was bugging me about channel memberships, but I haven't looked into it at all, so maybe we can check that out on a future stream and see if it would be worth it. But anyway. Christian says, weird? Very weird things. I mean, in general, yes. I think a lot of today has been weird things. But yeah, to wrap up here, as always, thank you to everybody coming out live, especially people in the chat. That's a nice motivator for me and keeps me going with the streams. And also thank you to anybody watching the archive, the VOD after the fact. Really appreciate that, and YouTube loves it when you watch my streams for more than like a minute. They're big fans of that. So so I'll leave it there for now. But yeah, otherwise, I hope everyone has a lovely week. Please take it easy. Find some time to relax and do things you like, as always. And yeah, otherwise, I'll see you next time.